This video is simply to show you how you can create that layered logo file that we're then going to take over to After Effects. So let's get started. We're going to start by creating a new document, and you're going to use the same step whether you're in Illustrator or Photoshop. So we want to make sure that we create the exact size we need before we go into After Effects. So we're going to go to our web document, and we're just going to assume that we are creating this logo for Instagram. So it's going to be a square 1080 by 1080. If you want to save this as a preset, you can. If this is a technique that you're going to use frequently. So I'm going to tab Create. And since we chose web, it's already going to be in the correct color mode. It is already setting everything up in pixels, so we're ready to go here. Now we're not going to get in depth into how to use Illustrator. I just want to highlight a couple of key points that you're going to want to think about as you go forward. So, big thing is your layers. So I'm going to actually pull this out so we can see that. In order to animate, everything that I want to animate needs to be on a separate layer. So I've opened up my Layers tab. If you don't see your Layers panel, go to Window and then Layers, and you'll find that. To add a new layer, I just click the plus, and you're going to want to name these, okay? So I'm just going to draw some shapes. So we're going to start in layer 1, and I'm going to have no stroke, and let's just do a fun hot pink fill. And we're going to do an ellipse, and I'm just going to draw a circle right here. And so say that's the first, woo, bright. That's my first shape. So even though I can see it's a pink circle, I'm going to go ahead and name that because that's going to help me when I get to After Effects. So then we'll draw another shape, and let's pick another color. Oops, didn't mean to change that. Although maybe I should. So we're going to draw another shape with another color. And you can draw whatever you want. So I'm just demonstrating this technique. So now I've drawn that blue circle on that pink circle. No worries. So I'm just going to click on that blue ellipse, drag it up to layer 2. So that's how you fix it if you happen to get something on the wrong layer. Now when it comes to type, you're going to want to do something a little bit different. So let's say you're going to have maybe your initials. So I'll put my initials in there, get that sized how I want that. Now the key with this is you want this to be in the correct font and in the correct size. Make sure you haven't spelled your own name wrong when you're popping in doing this technique. And it really doesn't matter like which font you want to use. So just pick whatever's on brand for what you're working with. And you can set that as a color as well. But what you want to do with type is that you want to create outlines of that type. So it basically then becomes a shape. Now, in this case, if I wanted to animate the two initials separately, I would want those on separate layers. If I want those to move together, they can stay on the same layer. So we're going to do that same technique we did before. Just pop in here, drag that up to the next layer. We're going to call this initials. So to create our outlines, we just select our text, go up to Type, and Create Outlines. And now it's Shape. Now this is why we want to make sure that everything is spelled correctly, because now it's not editable. If I grab my type tool, it acts just like shape. And again, emphasizing in After Effects, these are going to move together. So they're not going to be separate. Then I don't have to export anything. I can just save this straight as a .ai file and bring that right into After Effects. Let's hop over to Photoshop and take a look at what we need to do in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I'm going to first we don't need the timeline, so we're going to get rid of that. Again, we're going to start our new document, and same thing as we did before. We just want to make sure that we're setting it up correctly. Here you can take a peep at resolution, and you can decide, it really doesn't matter if you want a transparent or a colored background. You can either keep that or hide that when you pop over to After Effects. So we'll create that. Let's hide our grids. So same thing, you have a layers panel. And if we don't see it, again, we go to Window Layers. Here's our new layer. Now, notice when we set this up, we forgot to say no artboards. So you are going to want to get rid of these artboards before you go into After Effects. So just right-click or control-click and go to Ungroup Artboards, and then you'll just see layers. So do check that in your Layers panel. Same thing as we did over in Illustrator. We can start creating shapes with different fills. We'll add a couple more. So if I wanted these to both be on a different layer, I need to make sure I draw those on a separate layer. So I'm just going to click on layer 2 and then draw my second one. And so with type, again, I want it to be on a separate layer. And remember, if you change your mind about it, we can always hide that layer and still create type inside of After Effects. So we're going to pop that in there. And then we're going to right click on that layer and we're just going to rasterize that type. So again, it's that shape. It's no longer editable type. So now we have all three objects that we can move around inside of After Effects. This is going to be saved out, and what we want to save it out from Photoshop is we want to make sure we're saving it as a Photoshop document. So it's going to get that .psd extension. And we want to make sure that we have saved our layers, that we haven't flattened anything. So once you have those created, you're ready to take those over into After Effects and animate those. So you have the option to either create your own logo, or if you want to use the example files that I have for our session, you can do that as well.